Dark Pixel Gaming Podcast. Mike is gone, possibly forever.
R.I.P. Mike.
Yeah, he might be gone forever. We don't know yet. If he's here next week, I don't know. What are the odds he's here next week?
100%, I would say.
I think it's 50-50. I don't know.
50-50 odds.
Yeah, and it's not that, it's not like anything tragic happens. It's just...
He did get in a car accident.
He might move to... Although his car did get totaled.
Although his car did get in an accident, he wasn't in the car accident.
He might become a hermit and move to West Virginia and just live in the mountains. Like, that's all I'm saying. So we don't know yet. Verdict's out.
Next meetup
Verdict's
in
not
West
yet
Virginia.
Out.
That's
yeah.
All right.
We might have to meet up in West Virginia. So if there's a little delay, you'll know why. We actually also have a shorter podcast for you guys today. Partly because Mike's not here. Also partly because there's not a ton of news. Everyone's talking about E3 now, and we're kind of in that weird time of the year, right, where people are just gearing up for their announcements in a month or two instead of like now.
Yeah, the next podcast was supposed to be episode 100.
Yes, this is
technically episode 100, but
100.
we're not going to call it episode 100 because that's supposed to be a special episode. And when
we
you turned it on and you just saw us two, you were like, oh. So, we got to wait till Mike's back and
we got to wait till Mike's back.
Do the special episode. So there are a ton of questions and a ton of suggestions you guys had for that episode and stuff.
And
we've got
pushed them off till next week. Yeah. So as of now, this is episode 99 and a half. Is that what we're calling
99.2.
99.2.
Right.
This is the second 99th episode. We split up the 99th episode into 2 episodes, so everything
to
will
make
work
more
out.
money.
Yeah, to make more money.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like The Hobbit or Twilight or whatever else.
Or Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. So the first thing we're talking about here is the Nintendo Switch version of Dragon Quest XI. We got a little more info on that.
Yeah.
And why it's not coming.
We talked a lot about that last time, so you'll have to bear with us a little bit because there's some new information. That being that we know Dragon Quest XI was made for Unreal Engine 4, right?
Right.
And the Switch supports Unreal Engine 4. However, apparently, the Switch didn't start supporting Unreal Engine 4 before the Switch existed.
Oh, wow.
Makes sense.
How surprising. Yeah.
So Unreal Engine 4.16, I think it is the first version that added Switch support. So Dragon Quest XI, it sounds like, was being built on a version of Unreal Engine 4, which makes sense. It's been working on it for a long time.
Right. It's been a long time.
Earlier than that.
Yeah.
And so apparently it's a big pain in the butt to update everything to a more recent Unreal Engine 4 that is compatible with Switch. It's not just plug and play, which is the idea of Unreal Engine.
I know, that's kind of funny. So even though it was so exciting that the Switch got Unreal Engine 4 and everything's going to come over there now, it's like, well, hold on, it's not so easy apparently. Yeah. I didn't realize that updating it would cause that big of a pain in the butt.
I know.
I think of it in terms of whenever I update Adobe After Effects or something, I lose all my plugins, I lose all my presets.
Yeah.
I have to kind of manually go in and re-add some stuff. So
CS6
I would assume
life,
it's
man.
kind of like that. I know.
Yeah. 6-year-old version of After Effects. Not upgrading ever.
It's still the best one, man. It's got everything you need.
Did they change a bunch of keyboard shortcuts, by the way?
Oh, did they?
Using a more recent version, and I was a little confused.
Well, I'm on a Mac, so at work they're all changed anyway.
Well, so am I. Maybe that was my problem.
That might have been it. But the weirdest thing though is that this has nothing to do with the 3DS version. I was really hoping that it's we're working on the 3DS. No, it's the Switch. They're working on bringing that to life. I would assume it's the PS4 version, given what we're hearing, right?
Yeah.
How they're...
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't think the 3DS runs Unreal 4.
That would be a lot more work if they were, making a version still on Unreal Engine 4 that was doing 3DS stuff
that was
something
different.
Else, that would make sense. I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be weird. But so still disappointing. But... Whenever it comes out on the Switch, honestly, if it's going to take that long, they might just skip it altogether. If it's already out on the PC.
Oh. Well, dude, that's the thing, though. All those indie games that were also out on PC sold like crazy.
That's true.
On the
They
Switch.
still did well.
People
on the
want
Switch.
things
on
a handheld mobile, convertible console. Yeah. Apparently, they really want that really bad. People are willing to buy things twice. I've done it. I bought Stardew Valley twice.
Nice.
I freaking played it on PC and then I bought it on the Switch. And
which one are you going to play multiplayer on, though? Because apparently multiplayer's come later this
It's
month.
coming to PC first, too, right?
Of course.
So, but dude, I don't boot my PC up and play PC games that often.
Yeah, I don't either, man. It takes too much time.
Robert was like, "Hey, I got a new game PC. Give me your Steam, login stuff." I was like, "Here it is." But I was like, "Dude, I haven't been on there in months. I haven't been on there in months."
I only go on there now to play. What's that party game? Jackbox.
Oh,
Entertainment.
yeah, that's worth it.
Yeah,
That's
all
also
I do
on Switch
Steam now.
so
Oh, it is. That's right. That's right.
I don't know if all the versions are, but
jeez.
yeah. So I don't know. I think people will still maybe buy the PS4 version of Dragon Quest XI and the Switch version of Dragon Quest XI.
That's what Nintendo has been counting on at this point. Okay, would you please buy both, please? Because everyone in Japan plays Dragon Quest. They're not going to wait a year.
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. Cat knocked the microphone over. Things that happen when Mike's not here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where did we go?
Gosh, I don't even remember. Dragon Quest 11.
People
have to buy it twice.
People buy it twice. People in Japan really like Dragon Quest, so maybe they'll all buy it twice. I don't know. The thing is, though...
But Japan is the Switch nation, right? Like, they have more use for the Switch than anybody else.
Right.
Because they're on trains and,
handheld consoles are really useful and everything. I mean, I still wonder, though, the Switch is... The Switch is portable, but the debate was always like, is it portable enough?
Is it portable enough?
For people to take it places?
I've
never taken mine anywhere.
No, I never do. I mean, I do sometimes in a car, but I don't play it in public. I only ever play it if I can find a quiet place to sit down and play it, and 99% of the time that's just in my house.
Yeah, exactly. But still nice, though.
Oh, very nice. Like, the other day, I took it out and I was playing... I don't even remember why I took it out. Why did I do that? I can't even remember. I took it out, and I was playing something to do with my daughter and how she wouldn't sleep.
And you handed her a Joy-Con
no,
and you beat her in Mario
she
Kart.
was trying to grab my Joy-Con. But last night, I ended up putting her to sleep. We were both laying down on my bed, and I had the Switch up, and she was looking up at it and like chewing on a toy or something, and then she fell asleep watching me play Breath of the Wild, which I started playing again, by the way.
Nice.
And all I can think about as I'm playing that game now is what the next one's going to be like.
Yeah.
In fact, I might make a video about that because I have some suggestions if Nintendo is down with them.
You doing the Master Quest? Right?
Yeah. And it's way more fun. Yeah. Like, I don't even know... I never really assumed that making a game harder would really make it more enjoyable. And I've done hard mode on different things, but you always still have to kill everything when you do hard mode. Yeah. Like... I remember my first experience with like a super hard mode was double agent mode in GoldenEye, and you still have to go around and kill everyone. Like you don't just get to sneak around and no one sees you. But in Breath of the Wild, I can climb and avoid. I've killed maybe like 5 goblins this whole time, and I'm just like avoiding battle like crazy.
Yeah.
And I know what to do. I know where to go. I'm just beelining it straight to Kakariko. Go here, do these shrines, like go up and get all this stuff. And I know what to do. But it's still so fun, just like. Trying to sneak around everything.
It's like a total tangent, but what I really like about starting Breath of the Wild over is that the world feels big again.
Yeah.
Like
that's right. At the end of the game,
it's still huge. It still takes a long time to get places. Totally. But your stamina, you can climb pretty much anything.
And you have a teleport.
You can
for every part
places,
of the world.
You got a horse, or if you did everything, you got a motorcycle now. So it doesn't feel as large. But starting it over, it's like, whoa, this place is huge, and you're like, I'm gonna go climb this thing, get to the top, and you're like, oh my gosh, halfway through, like, I can't climb this thing. I've got to go around it. What the heck? Like crazy. But
and also, I have no intention of beating it. Like at all. Like I started playing it on Masters mode, and I was like, I don't want to actually beat all the shrines in Ganondorf.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to play the game, and whenever I'm done playing, But I have no intention of actually completing
the game. It's a good game for that, though. Just it is. And screw around and keep going. Yeah. Well, anyways, Dragon Quest XI Switch. Yeah. So that. Who knows when that'll be? But apparently, it's a bigger problem to. So I don't know what other projects. I never have
guessed that it would be that hard.
I don't know if there are other projects that were developed on an earlier version of Unreal Engine 4 that are going to have a harder time.
That are coming over now.
Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, this game's just coming over now, and they apparently hadn't updated their Unreal for a couple of years. So, who knows? Things like Final Fantasy VII Remake.
They can get the update notification in the corner. They're
like, no, later, remind me in, and then you put a date, 2019. That's Unreal Engine 5 territory. But what's funny is... like what if Kingdom Hearts 3 is made on an earlier version of Unreal 4. It'll come out this year around I guess Dragon Quest XI technically came out last year in Japan, But I mean, I didn't realize that after the Switch had been out for more than a year, people still wouldn't have up-to-date stuff to deal with what the Switch can do.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe even Kingdom Hearts is like,
Oh,
because we've
yeah.
heard nothing about a Switch version of Kingdom Hearts yet, right?
Sure.
At least not that I'm aware of. You guys can correct me on that. I may be totally wrong there, but as far as I know, they haven't mentioned the Switch yet. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping it comes out on the Switch. That's how I want to play it.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to. I mean,
But
I'll
might
play
be
it
so
whatever.
Huge that like
But it might be too big
it doesn't fit. I don't know. It's
on the
great.
32 gig cart.
Yeah, well, then the 32 gig cart with just a download executable.
And,
There's
you download the
nothing
rest.
on the cart.
But the Switch doesn't have enough room itself to download
Then maybe it'll come with
that
an SD
much
card.
more.
I don't know.
It might need
I
to.
don't know if it ever
that's
comes
crazy.
to Switch.
But that's an interesting problem. I wonder if other developers ran into the same problem.
yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
All right, good riddance, Cat. Stop knocking our microphone over.
So now, hold on.
Yeah, now she wants out.
It's
So
gonna wind again.
we're gonna have to let her out. Go
Yeah,
out,
Craig,
go.
get out.
Jeez. She's like, you guys are boring. This is bullcrap. Okay, so again, we were talking about Japan a little bit with Dragon Quest XI. This next
Me and
topic,
Landon talk about Japan a lot.
we talk about Japan a lot. This next topic is a lot to do with Japan because it's about Japanese Twitter accounts. But apparently, the Japanese Splatoon Twitter account has surpassed 1 million followers, which is the first Nintendo of Japan, or just Nintendo, I guess, Twitter account to surpass 1 million followers. Like the Nintendo Twitter account doesn't have more than 1 million followers in Japan. Mario, Zelda, other things don't have more than 1 million followers.
But Splatoon does.
Splatoon has more followers than Nintendo's account, which is weird.
That makes me wonder how is Splatoon 2 sold?
Really well. I
It
mean,
has
it's
like better than 1, or
oh yeah.
Really?
It's been in the top 3 almost nonstop since it came out.
wow.
Like games that knocked it out.
And
were
that's
like
unfortunate
Monster Hunter
because
World
my
and stuff.
personal opinion is that the first Splatoon was maybe more solid of a game, but it just came out on the Wii U and no one had a Wii U.
No one had a Wii U.
That's such a shame.
No one had a Wii U. I don't know. Like they've added enough awesome stuff.
I haven't played it
just
in a while.
Salmon Run alone is that's what I do half the time. In that
Really?
game. Is Salmon Run on? Okay, then I'm playing. But
that's
but I think this is really interesting because if you're not into Splatoon and you're wanting to skip to the next topic, that's totally fine. But we're not even necessarily talking about Splatoon per se. It's just the idea that Nintendo came out with a new IP on a crap console, probably the worst console they've had in ages. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I love the
Yeah,
Wii U,
yeah.
but like
Oh, me
consoles that
too.
underperformed.
Oh, absolutely.
And they launch a new IP that explodes on an underperforming console.
That was the
And-
best,
Oh my gosh.
thing that they ever did.
Yeah, well, it's crazy because there was a GDC talk just a couple weeks ago, I think.
Oh, GDC's back around?
Yeah, and they were talking
Good.
about developing Splatoon and that, the old stories, it was going to be rabbits and it was going to be Yoshis. And it was going to be, and then they're like, no, let's make new characters. And I'm sure they're so glad they did because if this was just a game with a bunch of Yoshis shooting squirt guns at each other, people would be like, oh, Nintendo hasn't come up with a new IP, even though it's a new game concept.
Yeah, it's
So
just not.
the fact that they have the characters to go along with it, I think.
Well, and that's how they chose to introduce Smash Brothers. was Splatoon, Booyah, and it's like the first characters to be introduced as Smash Brothers Switch characters were Splatoon. Not even Mario, Link. It was Splatoon, 2 Splatoon characters before you saw anything else, and that's like that's powerful, man.
Well,
Splatoon has really exploded.
They added Splatoon like Mii costumes to
I do
Smash
remember
on
that.
Wii U.
Mm-hmm.
So
but not the characters.
not the characters.
Yeah.
But they did that with Gino.
Yes, they had Gino clothes.
If Gino's not in,
I was so
Smash
mad
Switch,
though. I want freaking Gino.
They need
needs to be
Gino.
in
I don't know.
Smash.
Well, okay. It's another side note. Apparently, Nintendo said recently, or somebody dug up. I think it was what's the name on Switch? Source Gaming found that there was a little bit of a footnote in the polls that they were doing for Smash Brothers years back about what characters they should have, and they said basically like these results could be saved and used for future.
Oh, good. Okay, interesting.
So, now you're going to have the eternal, like, Goku fans that are always going to be like, Goku and Smash, like,
yeah,
it's still
that's a
possibility.
harder thing to figure out.
Goku,
got
crap,
his own
what were
game
some
right
of the
now.
other big ones that people were...
Well, I voted for Gino. I remember when
And then Gino,
that
Gino.
came out, I was like Gino all the way, and they sort of gave a little, like, costume
Here's a
outfit
hat
to
so you
me,
feel
but-
like you're Gino, but that's the dumbest...
So stupid.
The Mii Fighter thing, I wonder if they're even going to do that in the new Smash.
Well, it seems like Mii's aren't as big a deal on the Switch, so it's like...
Like, it's true. Well, I mean, like, you can still make one.
They're there, and you
like,
can race a Mario Kart 8. You can still be a Mii racer.
Yeah, but like, I wonder if that was just because it would have been more trouble to take that out than just leave it in.
And that really, it was a fun thing on the Wii to make a Mii.
Yeah, it was really fun.
I like that it's not Mii focused anymore.
Yeah.
Miiverse.
No Miiverse.
No Miiverse, which I'm fine with.
So, which means that Miiverse level in Smash.
Oh
was
yeah.
There Miiverse level?
Well, was it downloadable?
Crap,
I never
what am
played
I thinking
it.
Of?
It may be in a different game.
Maybe it wasn't. There was some Miiverse integration in Smash. I can't remember how it worked.
I know there was Mii. You could play as a Mii and you'd level them up, and that was actually really cool.
Well, because you could choose what weapons they use.
Yeah, and you could switch them
cool.
around.
So I think that's what they did for the Splatoon stuff. It was like, you could be a dude with a laser gun with inkling.
Yeah, sort of.
Anyway, so like Splatoon's been a really big success for Nintendo. Like, it's been absolutely bonkers, off the charts. Like, it continues to sell. People don't talk about it a lot in real hardcore gaming circles.
Right.
But it's doing something that hasn't really been done in Japan in recent years, and that's a shooter that's succeeded in Japan.
That's true in Japan.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Like, they're just eating it up. So,
you know what's funny, and this is sort of relevant, but I'm remembering it. It's been a few days since they announced it, a few weeks maybe. But Nintendo is bringing a Splatoon tournament to E3 and a Smash tournament. So Smash Switch, just like when Smash Wii U came out, they brought in all the big Smash players. That was more just a for fun thing. That wasn't a serious tournament. This time, it's like
it's a real tournament,
and they've got Splatoon 2 and Smash Switch, and that's gonna be cool. I love watching the pro game tournaments for Smash Brothers specifically.
Yeah.
I think those are really cool, really interesting, and they're gonna bring these guys on for the Switch. So that's really cool. And the other game they're doing is Splatoon. So it's like, I know Sakurai has said 1,000 times he does not like competitive gaming. He does not want Smash to be a competitive game, but because of Splatoon and because of the online play and the way that they've embraced that type of competitiveness with Splatoon, I think Nintendo's realizing that it's inevitable. They've got to
because that competition gets people to play the game more, because if you can play online and compete, it makes it more interesting. It really does.
The only problem is when you get really good people, some people get so good at the game it's not fun for everyone else to play against them.
And which is where matchmaking is important, right?
Yeah, it's true. And Splatoon has taken some pretty big steps to mitigate that, which is good, but I still enjoyed every now and then playing with some like really talented people. In Splatoon, you don't really get that as much anymore.
It depends. Like, if you're playing Splatfest, you'll get steamrolled sometimes, like, especially in the first few.
Because it's squad based or whatever.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, you'll never win a match if somebody drops out on your team either. So then you'll get steamrolled just because of that every now and then. But anyways, Nintendo's definitely dedicated to that competitive stuff.
I think it's good. Because Japan is slowly starting to legalize gambling. So one of the reasons that the competitive scene in Korea is so much bigger than it is in Japan is because of Japan has laws about gaming for money, basically. And I think they're slowly changing that. And when that finally happens, Japan's going to blow up, because they probably got some of the most talented people in the world that would love to get in the competitive gaming scene, just the way that South Korea has. So.
Yeah, I wonder that some of those games they seem to be PC oriented. The real big ones, like the Counter Strikes and the
Warcraft,
the
League. Yeah.
I don't know how big PC is in Japan. Still, I think it's a growing market, but for some reason, PCs are huge in South Korea.
Yeah, and it's mostly the PC Bung, the cafes.
Internet cafes.
And that's where everyone goes.
Yeah,
because they still don't have. And Japan has those too. So
they've got them too, but like, I feel like people. I don't know how they're laid out in South Korea, but in Japan it's almost more like you're going to read some manga and you're going to watch some movies and you're going to drink your melon soda and like hang out and smoke in the shower, and like there's just so much you can do there. It's not just like you're going there to play a game.
Yeah, whereas in Korea it's all gaming oriented.
Yeah, that's interesting. So anyways, Splatoon's taken off for Nintendo in ways that I don't think people, if you're not keeping tabs on it, I don't think people realize how much this is really killing it for Nintendo. This is going to be possibly their biggest franchise, like, moving forward.
Yeah, this is rivaling Pokemon and Zelda.
It's way up there.
All that stuff. I'd say it's probably more comparable to Pokemon just because it's weird. But anyways,
that's funny.
Okay, so that's basically what's happened news-wise. Now we've got Mark MSX asking on Patreon. He asked a question about gaming envy, saying when he grew up, he was so envious of his friend who had Ocarina of Time. He didn't have it, but his friend did, and he would get mad and he'd try and take the guy's controller so he could play it, but he didn't have it. And eventually he was able to get the game, and that was such a great moment for him, right? But do we have a comparable experience to that, like with gaming envy
of somebody else's video game or whatever?
Yeah, and gosh, we were all Nintendo people, so the way I probably did have gaming envy, but I masked it as like, you know, Nintendo fanboy superiority stuff. So it's like, oh, you have Sonic. But the truth is, I wanted to play Sonic. He goes fast and he does whatever. And there's nothing like that on the Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo couldn't actually handle that fast moving of images the way that Sega could. Super Nintendo had it had better other aspects, but Sega prioritized the speed.
I think the sound on the SNES was better.
Yeah, it was way better because Sony provided, or not Sony. Yeah, Sony provided the sound chip. I made a video about that. Anyways, yeah, but I thought it was cool. I did want to play it, but I never actually really played Sega. I went over to a friend's house a couple times and played Sonic once or twice, but I always wanted to. That was probably envy, but it manifested itself in like, oh, the game sucks. You suck. And my game's better. I've got Mario. I've got Zelda, Link to the Past. So, but then, and then also with that, we had the PlayStation 1, but that just became a battle between the N64 and the PS1. And I always had the N64. I didn't have a PS1. So I wanted to play Final Fantasy VII and all that stuff, but I had Ocarina of Time, and that was enough. Like, I didn't need what my other friends had. So I probably became more envious as I just kind of got over that, and instead of just being loyal to Nintendo, actually seeing other cool games and then being sad that I can't play them. But I'm trying to think of what games that would actually be. Like right now, I don't have Splatoon 2, and I want it. But my controller, there's reasons why I haven't bought it yet. I still need to get my controller fixed.
Right.
The Switch, the first batch of Switches.
It's coming back soon, the second time.
But you have the Pro controller, right?
But I have the Pro controller.
So you can still play. I don't have that yet.
Yeah. I know for me, when the PlayStation 2 came out, and it was such a big deal, and like everyone we knew had a PS2.
Yeah.
And I remember going to people's houses, and when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out,
yeah, that was the
and everyone was talking about it. It was like, this is the biggest selling game of all time, and it's blowing away Mario, and sales records and all this stuff. And
we had True Crime Streets of LA because it came out on the GameCube, but it was basically Grand Theft Auto clone.
Pretty close. Yeah. Grand Theft Auto was like Kung Fu and Bullet Time and stuff, but
in my opinion, it was better.
I don't know. I've tried playing a few Grand Theft Autos, and I just don't super get into it. I don't know why. Right. I've probably watched people play them more than I've actually played them myself. Really? Going over to when we lived in Arizona. To the Daniels house and watching watching Brandon playing, and it's just like because you remember doing that as a kid, going over to somebody else's house and watching them play a game, and just leaving, and like that was all you did,
and you think that because you didn't get to experience, like there were so many games that I only had like cursory knowledge of. I only played like a little bit, or just watch someone play it, and then I went home and I would just it would grow in my mind as to what I was watching, and it would become cooler and cooler. But it was partly the fact that I didn't play it that made me want to play it even more.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh man, like do you remember that game we played? Holy crap! Incredible Universe.
Okay.
We went there. There was a PlayStation. There was a Jet.
Yeah.
Do you remember
this
that?
was before they had the analog, the dual.
Yeah, it was just the little
the D-pad
4 buttons. Thing. Yeah. And that was crazy. I don't even know what that game is called.
I've tried to look it up before.
I don't know.
I can't find it. But when you crashed, your blood went on the windshield of the spacecraft.
That's right. And we would crash a lot because I didn't know how to play it. I kept trying to do the thing that somehow it would make missiles fly from behind you. I don't even know how that worked. But you can only do it every so often. So I kept trying to do it and I couldn't. And I would go through this canyon and crash. But that was the coolest game I'd ever seen.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's probably the biggest gaming envy I've ever had.
That
I
was
don't know
out.
what the game's called.
That was out right next to the Super Mario RPG demo.
Yeah, the SNES demo was across the hall.
I just realized probably for me the very first real serious case of gaming envy, I guess if you're going to call it that, was we had a Mac. Mm-hmm. And we had our X-Wing game on there, and we'd try and play that, but our Mac just absolutely sucked. And I remember trying to go buy a joystick for it, so we wouldn't have to use
I remember that, yeah.
And it was like, we went to CompUSA. Does that exist anymore?
I haven't even heard that name in
that
a long time.
Anymore. Holy crap.
I don't know, man. I feel like they became staples or something.
Anyways, we went to CompUSA, and I remember being like, oh, sick, all the joysticks, and they all look like real fighter jet joysticks.
Yeah.
And then looking at them, and then realizing none of them were compatible with Mac. They were all PC only. And I remember being like, what the crap? And you had to go to the Mac accessory section, which was just one little corner of the store in the back, and they had 2 options for joysticks. And neither of them looked like fighter jet joysticks. They all looked like they were trying to be this sleek.
I remember one of them was the gray one that had the 2 buttons on top and then the trigger.
And it was just like a stick. It was like
it wasn't cool at all.
And it had suction cups.
Remember you had that black one with the red little like nub and then all the buttons.
And you could flip up a thing to protect the buttons so you wouldn't hit it on accident, like nuke everyone or whatever that was going to be.
The nuclear option. Yeah, I remember that. That was a cool one. But for the Mac, that's pretty good.
I was so mad though. I was like, "This is so stupid." I have 2 choices of joysticks. There's all these cool ones over there, and then my best friend at the time, Josh Hobbs, called him Hobbs. Hobbs had a PC, and he was over there playing. Gosh dang it!
It was Rebel or the other Star Wars one, right?
Yeah, Rebel Alliance.
The one with Kyle Katarn.
Rebel. Anyways, freaking heck, he was.
Or was it Jedi Knight?
No, he was playing the FMV one. The one with the Millennium Falcon where you got to try and fly through the tunnel and everything. What was that?
That's not the one I was thinking of.
That's driving me nuts.
I don't know.
Anyways, game's pretty jacked, but I think Mike streamed it on here sometime back. But anyways, I remember going to Josh's house and
Mike talked about it.
Watching
Rebel Assault?
Maybe that was it, yeah. Rebel Assault or Rebel Assault 2.
The one with the actors and the
real
life people.
Yeah, man. That's I was just like, why can't I play this? Like, I was so mad. He had AOL. He had all the good stuff. So, anyways, that was probably it for me. It was just like being confined to a Mac at that point in time. Because really,
nowadays,
that was the mid '90s. That was when Apple was at the like bottom.
It was after Steve Jobs had been fired, and they were trying to figure out what to do before he came back.
Man.
Yeah, that's true. Mac. Nowadays, you can partition your hard drive. You can
boot camp, and
then more things are available on Mac. But back then, dude, that was bad.
Yeah,
I don't know why we had a Mac.
It was just Dad's computer from work that he was
home.
Extra, and he brought it home and had 200 megabyte hard drive.
Had a huge monitor though. Had a big screen.
Monitor. Yeah,
that was a 200 megabyte hard drive.
Yeah, dude. A 16 megahertz processor.
Oh my gosh, that wouldn't hold very much. That wouldn't hold the video recording.
All you people out there complaining about Switch internal memory.
32 gigs.
200
That's a ton.
200 meg. I remember.
Oh,
we really didn't have many games for that computer, but what we did have was you could edit the icons on the folders. Remember?
Yes, and we would.
So you edit the icons on the folders.
We were so lame.
Like pixel by pixel.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Because I would always make Star Wars TIE fighters and stuff.
And like the Death Star and like lasers coming out of it and everything. And then
it'd get pretty complicated.
And then you'd make folder mazes where you make a folder, and then in that folder was 2 folders. So you'd open one of those folders, and then that folder would be like 2 or 3 more folders, and you'd open.
But sometimes because they weren't always in list mode, so you could hide. You can put a folder on top of another folder. And it was like Tanner would make those mazes all the time.
Yeah, so you try and get to the end of the folder maze.
Yeah.
Holy crap, dude!
Oh,
that was our life for a very long time.
We made our own fun.
Holy crap!
That was when we started making movies, though.
That was
around that time, and that's like I'm glad though. I'm glad that we were bored enough to start doing something. Oh yeah,
totally.
Because that's what we're doing now.
That was hilarious.
That works.
Gaming envy.
Thank you. Okay, so Mark MSX, good question. And here's the last one. We only got four topics for today. From Ese Al Obani. I do not know how to actually say your names. From Patreon. ESE-AL Obani. Says, is there a good way to describe video games to people who never played them? A way that might make them realize it's a media worth getting into just like movies and books. And so Ese Al Obani, I don't know. Okay.
Sure, yeah, that sounds
right. It was a longer comment. right? And was talking about how they were playing Final Fantasy 14, I believe it was, and somebody came in and watched them play for a little while, and she was just running around and killing things. And that was basically it. And then the person said, hey, what do you do in this game other than run around and kill things? And she was, sorry, I don't know, I don't actually know how to address you with the pronoun.
No, we get it. It's
but anyways, this person responded with, oh, there's tons of stuff. The game's so deep. It's got this and that. And as this individual continued through the game to show this other individual how deep the game was and how great it was and how much it was worth getting into, this individual then began to realize how all they really were doing was killing things and running around. And there wasn't much. But after 50 hours of doing that, they had developed a really strong connection with the characters, and they had come to understand the world, and the story was making sense. But the mechanism for getting to each of those points, whether it be character, storyline, or world, was killing things and running around. And so it's a gross oversimplification, but the question being, is there a better way to describe these games to people who've never played them than to say that you go around and kill things, despite the fact that that is kind of what you do in most of them.
Yeah. Huh,
and that's rough. I remember once I was playing Ocarina of Time. My granddad walked in. He was at our house just visiting, and it was the worst time. I was in the Deku Tree. It was at the very beginning of the game. Yeah. I had just started it over for whatever reason, and I was down to one heart, and so it was going beep 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 beep, and I couldn't get another heart. I didn't know where one was. I couldn't find one, and so he came in and he just sat down and he was just watching me play, and I was just running around trying to find a heart, so cutting all the grass,
with this alarm going
smashing all the pods,
time.
And this annoying sound was just so like ear splitting and just terrible. I swear it got 10 times louder when he walked in too, because I knew that he wanted to watch Fox News or something. He didn't want to be watching me playing a video game, or he maybe wanted something else. I don't know, but I all of a sudden I just became so hyper aware that I only had one heart, and this is so annoying. And anyways, it was kind of funny, but I've never really attempted to explain the value of video games to my grandfather. That I don't know how that would go, in all honesty.
Yeah, that's tough, man.
But I've had that same experience before, just in a different way, I guess, as I was running around and killing things.
See, even the example of movies and books, there are people that I know that don't watch movies, and there are people that I know that don't read books.
Right.
And
yeah, some people think books are boring and movies are boring.
Just, I don't know, don't appeal to them for whatever reason, or
sure,
a lot of money or whatever. But which, by the way, dude, I really want to see John Krasinski's new.
Oh, it's Quiet Place? It looks really... I didn't even know it existed. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's top of the box office. Yeah. And it's killing it. Yeah. And he directed that.
Yeah,
did you know that?
He did.
He's not just the actor.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy. Yeah, A Quiet Place. I'm not reading the comments of this movie, of this video now, just because we mentioned it, because people are going to talk about it. That's a cool plot, too.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
I think people only have so much free time in their day, and so usually they have a thing that they like, and that they're into things that are in that a category of things. So there's people that are into reading, and they'll read tons and tons and tons and tons. I think there's a valley of if the more you get into something, the more of only that thing that you consume.
I could see that.
And
so people who are into, for instance, politics will find reading books informative, but they will also watch certain television programs.
Sure.
There's some overlap there. They'll watch certain documentaries podcast radio, but then they won't watch other TV shows. They won't read other kinds of books. They'll find that a waste of time. So that's interesting.
Yeah, because even within video games, there's video games that people who play video games don't like.
Exactly.
At all. There's a lot of people that don't like RPGs because they find them to be slow, or they'd rather do something exciting, or something
the turn-based.
Get in and get out. They don't want to do turn-based or whatever.
Right.
There's a lot of people people that don't particularly like action games because they're bad at them and they have
Right.
more fun with the thinking and everything. So it's like
Then just reaction time.
yeah, so it's like we can talk about video games, we can talk about movies, we can talk about books, but even within those, there's subdivisions.
That's a very good thing to bring up. Yeah.
So it's tricky.
And
like,
there's no one person that likes books and will read all books and likes all books
Yeah.
all the time. Like maybe there is someone, like maybe there's a
like
librarian
all books
at an elementary school out there.
Yeah.
Because I could write a book like right now. And will that person like my book? Probably not.
the book.
I spent no time on it, and I just made it into a book.
Now, as far as like getting somebody who's never ever once in their life read a book to be like, you should read a book, any book, whatever.
But at one point in history, that was the thing.
Yeah, you had to convince.
You had to
people
convince.
do it.
Yeah.
Well, people.
Yeah, about 500 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost more like people wanted to read books, but they didn't know how to read.
True. So books still
or
existed.
the books were expensive and they couldn't get a hold of them.
But there were so few of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And nobody was literate.
Video games actually are probably closer to movies and TV, where it's a lower barrier to entry to actually participate.
Yeah.
Probably a little higher than TV and movies because you have to do something.
Yeah.
And like I remember I tried to show Krista Arkham City one time, and I was having her play it, and she was used to playing Nintendo games on a Nintendo controller.
Okay.
Where the ABXY.
She had that memorized.
The game's given her prompts for an Xbox PC controller, and the ABXY are in different places.
Yeah.
She could not do it. Like it was driving her nuts. Like she couldn't wrap her head around it, and so she's just like, "This is like I'm not enjoying this. Like I don't want to keep playing this." But for people who are brand new to video games, 100%. Like, that's really hard. I remember the first time I tried playing a game with a PlayStation controller. Yeah. And it was like,
triangle, square, circle. Like,
yeah.
I found that weird.
What? And the first time I played Final Fantasy IX, and you're doing the
yes, and that's at the beginning of the game.
Stuff. Yeah, and there's like,
X, A, and you've got to do it right, otherwise you have to do it again.
If you want to get,
know where the buttons were.
Yeah, and I wanted to get like the high score or whatever, and it's just like.
Well, you have to get at least above a certain amount, but yeah, you could.
I don't play enough PlayStation games to just be like bam, 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 like muscle memory immediate without thinking, that way. Like Nintendo games, I could do that, but like that every time I go back to Final Fantasy IX, that trips me out.
Yeah,
I can't do it. I have a hard time with that. So I can imagine being someone who's never once ever touched a controller.
I remember we'd play with our dad sometimes, and I'd be like, "Oh, push A," and Dad would look down at the controller and look up, push A,
and then try and figure out which button it was.
You did it wrong, but it was always like, "Oh, you've got to do it quick, right? You're playing Mario, you got to run and jump over the thing, and if you're running and then stopping and looking down and looking back up, then jumping, you're gonna fall in the pit because you don't have your momentum." Yeah. So you've got to know what you're doing and then execute beforehand. Yeah. It was just so frustrating. I was like 7. And I'd try to play games with my dad, and he'd play, but he.
Well, I remember
it's a different thing when you've never done it before. It's like A, what's A? Like, okay.
Yeah, like the evolution of the controller though for Nintendo stuff.
Yeah,
kind of made it easier for us. We started out with the NES, and it was like 2 buttons in the D-pad, and you could ignore start select.
Yeah, because those were never.
So you're pushing the left button, or you're pushing the right button, and then you're not gonna get those two confused.
Yeah. Super Nintendo did introduce quite a bit, though.
Where it was like.
But you've got to understand that, or before the NES came out, you've got the Sega, which was 3 buttons, right? The ABC. Was that before the SNES? I believe the Sega.
Oh, before
Genesis.
the SNES.
Yeah. The Sega Genesis had 3 buttons,
and then
right?
they had 6.
So. Yeah, then they went crazy after that. But so NES had 2, and then the Sega had 3, and then the SNES had 4. So it's not as crazy. But the R and L buttons were interesting. That's actually kind of a lot. And then the N64, holy crap, dude! The C buttons, and the R and L, and the trigger, and a joystick, and a D-pad, and the AB. That was a bit much. I'm glad they haven't really done that as much. But certain things have stuck from that, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, it's really. But we never really had a problem with it.
I feel like nowadays if you're just new to video games and you're an adult, it's harder to get used to the controller or whatever it may be. I would guess so, just because there's a lot going on with any of these controllers nowadays. There's two shoulder buttons on each side.
Yeah,
there's the 4 face buttons. There's 2 analog sticks. There's a D-pad. There's start select. Yeah. So. I think that's a hurdle for people. Like learning how to read was a hurdle for people.
Yes, that's a very good point. And if you compare video games to books, when books were becoming big 500 years ago, and comparing video games now, it's like there is an element of literacy there. There is like, and people who couldn't read but they were 40. It's hard to learn a new thing when you are older. So, and I know a lot of times when books first came out, that a lot of people, well, some people didn't really value books all that much.
Sure.
And that happens with any new medium, though. Any new medium comes out, people would assume that, you know, I remember with the advent of the writing system, like 5,000 years ago, there are people...
I remember.
I know I said I remember. I remember learning about how 5,000 years ago, when cuneiform became a thing, that a lot of... it's been recorded that a lot of people, older people, didn't like writing because then your memory goes soft.
Sure.
You've got to have a good memory, and you've got to be able to articulate things. If you can just write it down, then you don't have to remember it, right? So that was a huge thing. Anyways, every advent of, you know, media, technology, whatever, there's always people who resist it. But I think that literacy is a pretty important thing, and especially with cell phones and stuff, I think people are becoming pretty literate. I know cell phones are super simple, but you got to think of it in terms of the NES, which is what we started on.
Yeah.
And then people like, you know, parents, grandparents who are starting on a single touch phone, but hey, that's more than what they were doing before.
Yeah,
in
totally.
terms of, you know, interacting with their media.
Totally. Yeah.
So as far as, is there a good way to describe games, though?
Good way to
describe bring it back to the question.
Never played them. I don't know. It's like a play.
Because
it's like being part of a play.
Sure, yeah.
With sports in the play, where the play could go wrong,
and you have to start over the play.
Yeah, start over the play.
That is, and it's a 50-hour play. It's a marathon of a play. It's not like, you know, any play you've been a part of.
Oh, jeez. It's like playing cricket.
A play is probably the best way to explain it, though. Using sports as an analogy is pretty good.
I mean, sports are games, so that's the thing.
They are.
Like, games aren't,
and that's
video games, though. Yeah. The easiest games for people to understand. Like, I remember who I was talking to exactly, but I remember when they were first announcing, like, oh, they're exploring putting video games into the Olympics, right? And it was like, oh, what video games? Oh, FIFA, you know, NBA
games
2K,
that are already Olympic sports.
And it was like, oh, okay,
yeah.
Good. Well, because for right now they're trying to stay away from anything that's violent, and to be
Yes,
honest, that
I think they should.
Severely limits you.
Yeah.
What you
even Mario games are questionably violent. I mean, you've got to just stick to the sports games.
So you're playing
a simulation of a game that you
so maybe
should
that's
just
the
be
best
playing.
way. Maybe that's the best way. It's like, okay, you've heard of basketball, right? Okay, imagine if
you just run up and down the court.
Every single person that is playing on the team.
You potentially could. That's a big deal.
Or just the person who has the ball.
And that makes it seem a little more complicated. That works because most people understand sports. I mean, whether they're into sports or not, it's like, well, they at least have one sport that they have maybe liked, whether it be soccer, baseball, cricket, whatever. And it's like, if you try to explain the sport to someone who doesn't know the sport,
it's not about the rules.
Soccer, people just run up and down kicking a ball. Like, how is that different from running around the world killing things? And I get how it's different. Don't tear me apart on that one. I'm just saying, in terms of the oversimplification of the explanation, it is actually pretty comparable, and you're not actually killing anything. You're playing a virtual world. Anyways, but point being, you know, you can oversimplify anything to make it seem like not important.
Yeah,
you can oversimplify. Like,
and be facetious about it and just be
absolutely
like, oh yeah, what are you doing sitting there talking to nobody in this room and pretending there's an audience listening to your recording here right now? Yeah, potentially. Maybe no one
will watch. I mean, that's entirely possible. Everyone in the world could look at this and say no. And that's fine. Everyone in our subscriber base. But it's true. That's always something you have to run into. But in terms of being able to explain it, it comes with time. People, you're never going to be able to explain it other than, especially if they're sitting there watching you do it. Like, it's one thing if you can get somebody, sit alone with them, you know, you're over somewhere else, and you say, you know, some video games have incredible depth, and they're well written, and the gameplay complements. But when people are sitting there watching you, and you really are just killing everything you see, and you're running around a map, and that's the setting in which you're going to tell them how deep video games can be as an experience, I would suggest, say, hey, we'll talk about this later, and leave.
Stop watching my
and
game.
Play your game, kill all the things you need to kill, and then go back a little bit later on and be like, okay, So video games. But don't do it while you're playing it, unless you are playing a deep game. But people don't tend to do that as often. If somebody comes in, and you know how whenever you're watching like movies or TV shows, and you know maybe they're rated like TV, teen, mature, whatever, and your parents come in as like something something really risque happens, and that's just how it happens. That's basically a rule of life. That if there is anything that's any questionable content in any media that you're consuming at any point, when your parents walk into the room will be when that happens. And just don't try to explain it. Just let it go. That's just how it works. If you would just leave, it's a rule of life. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we'll talk later. Like, you're not seeing what you're seeing now is not representative of what I've been doing this whole time.
Oh, jeez, that's funny.
Oh gosh, all right.
That's funny. That's a pretty good question, though.
That is a very good question. It's one I don't know how to.
It's tricky.
How to answer.
Depends on how open that person is to wanting to understand.
That's what it all comes down to.
If they're not, then...
if they just want to make fun of you,
then
they're going to make fun of you. Just
people who play video games make fun of other people who play video games.
It's true. You can't avoid it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Either way. Well, cool.
Well, thanks, S.A.L. Obani, and I apologize for not knowing how to reference
sounds
you.
Right to me, but yeah.
But, geez, we're done. This is like four topics. We nailed them.
Episode 99.2.
99.2. I hope. Please enjoy it. We worked very hard on this episode.
Hope you enjoyed them. Oh, jeez.
All right.
Yeah, well, if you're listening to this audio only, I guess you exist. We run a YouTube channel. Check us out on Dark Pixel Gaming.
We never know who's listening to us audio only.
We never do. If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, you could listen to it audio only. Look us up on iTunes or Pocket Casts or whatever the heck you use, because there's a lot of them now. We couldn't even name all of the options that you have out there in the podcasting world. And if you don't listen to podcast audio only, I would highly suggest getting into it, because there's some really cool podcasts out there that are only available like as audio downloads. So I would check that out.
Yep.
Yeah.
But listen to ours first.
Don't not listen to ours.
And then listen to someone else's maybe.
Oh man.
All right. Well, you guys, peace out.